Hi everyone, Anthony Fantano here, the internet's busiest music nerd. And it's time for a review. Grouper, the man who died in his boat. I should be quieter here. Grouper, quiet music. I should be softer. Sorry. Grouper is the pseudonym for experimental and ambient music producer, as well as multi-instrumentalist, Liz Harris. And she grabbed the full attention of the burgeoning music blogosphere in 2008 with the album Dragging a Dead Deer Up a Hill, which is a nasty, awesome album title. And at the time, the album was a bit of a departure from her typically very ambient and kind of droney style. Instead, Liz was delivering these very kind of folky, sort of meditative songs that had very spacious, obscured vocals. It was music that was very psychedelic, very otherworldly, very basic in sound, melody, and structure, but still very heavy with feelings of loneliness and kind of desolation. These are feelings that, in my opinion, Liz ended up capturing so much better on the very ambitious double album that she dropped a few years ago, Dream Loss / Alien Observer, which features much more material, longer material, sounds that are way more nocturnal, shadowy, very droney, synthesizer filled too. And what I also loved about this double album is that I saw Liz playing with many more sounds and textures and kind of filtering them all through this low pass filter that made everything so muddy, and yet a lot of the sounds on this LP had this kind of unmastered sharpness to them with an occasional wash of distortion or crackle, which actually was nothing too distracting. I actually felt like a lot of the damaged sounds, the damaged quality of many of the sounds on this double album brought a lot of character to these tracks. And despite just being very simple from a musical and technical perspective, the songs on this double album are just so friggin' impenetrable. AIA took a while to grow on me, which is really why I did not do a full review of the double album in the year that it had dropped. However, this new collection of tracks from Grouper comes from that much more accessible territory that Dragging did, with acoustic guitar, soft, shy vocals with the occasional multi-tracked vocal harmony, those psychedelic effects. In a lot of ways, this album is a return to all of those things that made Grouper a name in the first place. Things are still feeling pretty muddy, pretty shadowy, but maybe overall this LP is sonically a little clearer, a little cleaner than Dragging a Dead Deer. I can't help but feel like maybe some people disagree with that. And the thing is, just in general, Grouper's music is so freaking open to interpretation. It's certainly not something that is easy to judge from an ambient perspective, but it's not really easy to judge from a singer-songwriter perspective either, because Liz isn't exactly penning tunes in the traditional fashion. Because I personally don't feel like you can really condense Liz Harris's appeal in a 3 to 5 minute song. Grouper's music is really something I personally feel you need to have a certain kind of personality type for, or you need to be in a certain kind of emotional state. Because to me, it's music that is really for people who need a little bit of emotional soothing. Because listening to a Grouper album for me is so much like going through a process or something like that. There's no moment where I want to put a single Grouper song on because I'm into really hearing that catchy melody or, you know, that really infectious hook. Which is why I think Grouper really asks more of her audience than most singer-songwriters do. You know, singer-songwriters in the most sort of vague sense that I can possibly mean it. It's always taken an album's length of songs for Grouper's emotional magic to kind of work itself on me. And that's no different for this album as well. From the very sharp drone at the intro track to the very audible, surprisingly audible song Living Room, where you can actually make out a lot of Liz's vocals, her lyrics, which are matched with a lot of beautiful guitar arpeggios, which is why my first impression impression listening to this LP was, it's sort of meh, it's kind of boring, it's really there in the background, but by the end of the whole experience, I was like, wow, this is beautiful. And when I started all over again, what I originally thought was just kind of was actually striking me as being pretty. Because while at first listen I could definitely make out everything that I'm hearing and what is being done, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's impacting me emotionally. As I was listening to this album again and again, I found tracks like Being Her Shadow, the very drony track Being Her Shadow, to be very kind of touching and somber. I liked the very echo-heavy track Difference too, which had all these layered vocals on it. I think the only downside for me personally to the track is that the guitar chords had a really kind of farty quality to them. They just didn't feel like they were being played well, and it was just kind of this sharp, noisy quality, sort of just kind of killing that smoother, more ethereal vibe. And then there are songs like Cloud in Places and Cover the Long Way, which feature guitar strumming patterns that don't really do all too much for me, honestly. And I don't feel like the vocal harmonies on the second of those two tracks are as well arranged as I typically hear from Grouper. They don't feel like they're gliding together or working in tandem. They're sort of muddying each other up because they're not synced up or performed in a way where they can actually complement each other well. The echoing keys on the track Vanishing Point were pretty decent. I liked the sound, I liked the tone, but I wish there was more of a song to it, a structure, a direction. I actually don't think this album gets really captivating again until its last few moments, especially the song Living Room, which is a gorgeous track and really one of the most beautiful, in the traditional sense, songs that Grouper has written. And I love the 6-minute drone that comes in before that track too. It's another stunning, ethereal piece of music that Grouper has bestowed upon me. Overall, again, I will say I do feel like this new album is clearer, but I'm not exactly sure if that's spelled out into kind of a success or an improvement, because I feel like it's exposed some things, like a lot of these guitars which don't seem to be getting performed or played as proficiently as what I've heard on Dragging Dead Deer. I actually wish the guitars were a little more obscured, and maybe that a few more of these tracks were sort of more awash in keyboards. On this new LP, a lot of the instrumentation kind of seems to be strewn about these tracks, kind of like the contents within the ownerless boat that kind of inspired this album in the first place. Still, I didn't come away from this album being very, very dissatisfied or unhappy. One big plus is that for sure, without a doubt, the emotions are still here. That, at least what I interpret to be kind of sadness, desolation, that sort of wandering, lonely feeling that is usually so potent in Grouper's music, whether it be the more acoustic stuff, whether it be the more droney stuff, that is still so heavy on this new album. I just feel like, the songs could have been sharper, and really that's it. When it comes to writing and performing too, I'm feeling a strong 6 to a light 7 on this album. If you've given it a listen, what did you think? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Why? And what do you think I should review next? Anthony Fantano, Grouper, forever.